There is design all around you. Go for a walk in the woods. Look at the blade of grass. Look at the butterflies. Look at everything in creation. Look at yourself. That's one thing that Brother Clayton makes, and he talks about back in Darwin's time when they first started talking about theories of evolution. He said, that was before they really understood what the cell was. They just thought, a pile of protoplasm could eventually, kind of bubble together and maybe, life could come out of that. He said they didn't really understand it. He says, but now we understand the cellular structure, and when you look in the cell with a microscope, you see a microscopic city. I want to read you what he wrote. A microscopic city containing complex factories with a security wall that allows raw materials in and manufactured products out. He describes a state-of-the-art communication system that not only, and this is all in the cell, guys, not only coordinates maintenance and production schedules, but keeps inventory as well, and a library that catalogs every unique function and characteristic of the cell and houses the complicated code and translation programs of the DNA and RNA molecules. That's just in the cell. Y'all get where I'm going with this? There's divine design. The odds of it just occurring, absolutely impossible. The design proves it again and again and again. I hear a lot of people talk to you about geological record. There was one thing, when Sarah Palin ran for vice president, and I'm eventually going to put all this together in a PowerPoint because I want y'all to see the rant that Matt Damon had about how could anybody so idiotic be running for vice president of our country because of her faith. He says they don't even believe in dinosaurs. And he went on and on about how that she didn't even believe in dinosaurs. And there's an assumption out there, if you're a Christian, if you're a person of faith, that you don't believe in dinosaurs. And I got to be honest with you, there are some who don't. We were at the Museum of Natural History, and there was a kid who was walking around going, "These are fake bones. These are fake bones." Now sometimes they do, have a model of the bones they found, but they have found full skeletal remains of dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures that are just amazing. They're there. They're not fake. The problem is when you start trying to date things about the world based upon what we have in the Bible, Brother Clayton says you have to assume 4 things. This is under section 3, does age matter? He says you have to assume that if you want to use that dating process, that we have no undated verses in the Bible, that the Bible genealogies are complete, that the purpose of the genealogical, record that they give you is to put them in order, which is not the case, and that all historical periods are represented. He said, so if you want to take and say, okay, we know how many years passed from this to this to this, he says those 4 things have to be in place, and he says, and all of them are untrue. None of them are true. So when you try to start taking and jiving and harmonizing what you're reading as far as, okay, this was this many thousand years, and you try to, put numbers to stuff in your head, it doesn't work. They start looking at dinosaurs and they're thinking, well, I think that there's only this many thousand years, so the dinosaurs, that's just not real. They think they don't even want to look at it. There's a lot of Christians that won't even look at the geological record because they can't make it work with what they believe. And honestly, it works because all you have to do is look at the undated verses in the Bible. The first 2, has anybody ever studied this? Have you ever looked at what Genesis 1 and 2 say, what they actually say? Genesis 1 and 2, if you look at the literal translation, it says, in the beginning of God's preparing the heavens and the earth. In the beginnings of God's preparing the heavens and the earth. The earth hath existed, waste and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God fluttered on the face of the water. Those 2 verses alone can account for everything we find in the geological record. In the beginning, when God was preparing the heavens and the earth, in the event of God preparing the heavens and the earth, what was He doing? Was He possibly laying the foundations of the earth? As He said to Job? He talks to Job about laying the foundations of the earth. Is that what was going on in that first verse? But we try to assign a number of years to that for some reason. That could have been billions of years. It obviously was, based upon what we know geologically. And then the earth has existed waste and void. Waste and void for how long? What caused it to become waste and void after He was working to prepare the earth? Do you know that in the geological record there is evidence of an asteroid strike? There's dust. You can go on Brother Clayton's site and read this. There are fragments of asteroids that indicate that yes, we were hit by an asteroid. That's probably when the earth became waste and void, and that's probably when the dinosaurs died. Seriously, guys, it's not that complicated. The first 2 verses of Genesis are undated. Obviously, billions of years took place during that time. And one thing, too, that he reminds us, and this is Brother Clayton talking again, in 2 Peter 3:8, he says, you remember what Peter said? He said, to the Lord, a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. Time was created for us. And when we try to affix time to the creation, we're trying to put God into our box. And you can't do that. So when you start having teachers come at you and say, well, if you're a Christian, then you must not believe in dinosaurs. Say, I believe in dinosaurs. Genesis 1. He was laying the foundations of the earth. What was going on when he was laying the foundations of the earth? When he was preparing the earth? He was getting it ready for us. The dinosaurs were apparently a part of that because we have proof of their existence. You can absolutely believe in dinosaurs, and you can marvel at the detail that God went into. If you think about the detail that he went in making us, don't you think he went into a lot of detail when he was going to, provide our home? On into another section that talks about the missing link. You're going to have a lot of people talk about evolution. You have Darwin's name come up anytime you talk to anybody about theories of evolution or anything like that. You hear about Darwin. The problem with Darwin's tree of life is that the fossil record does not support it. And even though the fossil record does not support Darwin's tree of life, you will still go into some museums and see that stupid illustration. And there's no validity behind it. As a matter of fact, the more that we study, the more they're seeing that the fossil record supports the creation story. There is this thing called, and I've got this listed for you, the Cambrian explosion. Lee Strobel writes about this, and so does Brother Clayton. But Lee Strobel had the opportunity to interview for his book, The Case for the Creator. This is a really good book too. He's good. He's really good. But he interviewed Dr. Jonathan Wells. He's a senior fellow at the Discovery Institute in Seattle. And Dr. Wells said, in the Cambrian explosion, we see most of the major animal phyla that are still alive today, as well as some that are extinct, and then goes on to say this is absolutely contrary to Darwin's tree of life. These animals, which were so fundamentally different in their body plans, appear fully developed all of a sudden in what paleontologists have called the single most spectacular phenomenon of the fossil record. You see what I'm saying? If things evolved, wouldn't you see in the fossil record, you would see that progression in the fossil record, right? Well, the Cambrian explosion, all of a sudden you see life. And it's completely developed. How do they explain that? Scientists that don't see this, it's almost like some Christians that just don't want to see the truth about timelines and about things that we know are true because they get so locked up in what they've been taught their whole life they don't open their mind to the truth. There's Josh McDowell. This guy we're going to get into in just a second if I don't completely run out of time. But Josh McDowell, this guy does Christian evidence stuff. He has written several books, and he had some students that took this book and they gave it to their history professor, and it was in a state college. And he read through it, and they went back to him a couple of months later and they said, hey, did you read it? They were trying to prove Christ to him. And he said, I did. And he says, it's the best I've ever read. He says, I don't see how anybody could refute the evidence that's in this book. But he says, I can't accept it because of my worldview. And they're like, you're kidding me. His worldview wouldn't let him believe in God, wouldn't let him believe in Christ. And a lot of times as Christians, we do that because of our congregational views. We've been so boxed in to this is this, this is this, this is this. And we forget that when we go before God, we're standing alone. You're not there with your preacher, you're not there with your teachers, you're not there with your mom and your daddy. You're standing alone. Christ interceding. You're alone. You better know what you believe. And it better be here. Well, what does your heart say for you to do? It's not that complicated, guys. It's really so simple, it's just mind-blowing to me how hard I made it my whole life. It is not complicated. And when you look at the evidence, you've got to open your mind to the truth of the evidence. People who are scientists won't do it. Some Christians won't do it. You open your mind to the truth. Because when you know the truth, you can share the truth with somebody who doesn't believe. So we've got to make sure we don't fall into the same pattern that so many scientists. Scientists will look at this evidence of the Cambrian explosion and they'll try to dismiss it. Well, we will do the same thing with things about our faith. We'll dismiss them, even though the truth's right there in front of us. And so that's the big thing. You got to open your mind to what the Word says and what the evidence says.